Hello, friend, and welcome to Borgcast Discovery 17.2 with Anne-Marie and Peter.
Hello, and dogs. If you're wondering
yes.
what that noise in the background is. Noisy buggers. And we have some...
Previously on Star Trek Discovery.
We heard from my good friend Boss. He said, Sea Devils, of course. I enjoyed the episode, though I generally prefer to have some discovery in my discoveries. I thought that she sent the suit away to destroy it, so I clearly didn't understand that bit either. There you are. But some answers from Andy now.
Oh, right. Answers from Andy. He's the emergency podcasting hologram in a different way.
Yes,
Yeah.
Bringing emergency answers for us.
And he writes, to try and answer a couple of questions, which might be redundant come the next episode, but never mind. As for where is Discovery, given that she entered the wormhole right behind Burnham? Well, we know wormholes and time travel can be unreliable methods of travel. If you remember back to the 2009 film... have I seen that? Yes, I have. The Narada and Spock both enter the wormhole moments apart, but Narada emerges over 20 years earlier than Spock. And from the TNG episode with the Barzan wormhole, they tend to be unstable. Oh, I remember that one.
Yes,
Ferengi,
that one.
Yeah, got stuck, didn't they? And then didn't they end up in Voyager?
Yes, they did. Played by different actors.
Okay.
Yes.
So Discovery could be deposited anywhere in the galaxy. We shall, I presume, find out next week. As to why Burnham set the soup up to send a signal. The signal was meant to be for Spock to let him know it was successful. That's what I thought. And then she destroyed the suit to prevent any chance to them returning. Unfortunately, she didn't realise the Federation invented time travel again around the 26th century. And as far as any connection to Enterprise, Discovery is now farther into the future, at least 100 years, so they should be free to tell entirely new stories without worrying about contradicting anything from the past.
Yeah, I think it was more that somebody was, and I can't remember who it was now, was thinking that maybe they'll make reference to the Enterprise story, and I said that was probably unlikely.
Yeah, because there's an Enterprise story about the 31st century.
Yes.
There's a time travel 31st century episode of Enterprise, which I remember watching, can't remember much about it at all.
Mm-hmm. Evil Dave Giacono also tweeted that the suit was sent back as a signal to Spock. So.
Which is what I thought, and then you told me I was
Well,
wrong.
no, I actually listened to it today. You weren't saying it was a signal from Spock.
No, I said it was a signal, though.
Yeah. And he also said about the temporal shenanigans with them arriving separately, quite considerably separately, as we find out in today's episode. But yeah, let's face it, it's all hand-wavium to get Michael on her own for a while, but there we go. Dave also suggested it's supposed to be transworm rather than transworm. Hence book telling Michael to close her eyes, which makes sense.
It does make sense, except that doesn't the actor who plays the dude, he sounded to me like he was a Londoner, and if he was, he would have said transworm, as distinct from transworm.
Not only that, but I had the subtitles on Netflix, and it did say transworm, but Memory Alpha also has transworm, and as I say, transworm makes sense. But I suppose it may have been his accent fooling whoever was putting the subtitles up. But anyway,
but he would have said transworm, or not transworm, which is a more northern pronunciation. And to me, he sounded like he was London. Now he could be, for all I know, some form of Canadian because their accents.
No, he's English.
Right, well, because he sounded London to me, and I would say transworm or transworm. They're quite clearly different and distinct.
Well, there you go. Potato, except nobody says potato.
Exactly. My point.
Oh, we've also had an MP3 from Puri.
Yay!
Hello, Args. Puri here to talk about the premiere of Discovery Season 3. That Hope Is You. Yeah, I've actually remembered the episode title. Possibly because it sounds like the last page of a kid's book where you turn it round and there's a mirror and it says under it, and the hope is you. But anyway, so yeah, I've heard the podcast. It was very good. Well done, everyone involved. And so I'm not wanting to retread old ground here, so it's really just giving my opinion. So yeah, I liked it. I'm definitely in the liked it camp. It is a bit weird having it being solely a Burnham episode, so to speak. And I can imagine something wibbly's got happening with the wormhole. A few things that stand out. Subspace appears to be damaged, I think they said. So, but I think I wouldn't even. I know everyone's talking about this as a fallen Federation. I'm actually not going to go so far because your man who sat in the office every day with his. I want an alarm parrot, by the way, but with his alarm parrot, he was saying that there were a couple of ships in range, but they didn't have long range sensors. So it almost looks like because there seems to be an issue with communications and long range scanning, perhaps something's up with subspace. And I just like the idea of possibly there are some true believers, but basically the centralised control of Starfleet, or the sort of main administration of Starfleet's gone, and that's more how the Federation has fallen. But like I say, there are definitely some true believers out there, and I really loved that last scene where she commissioned him. I thought, yeah, it was actually quite emotional, and just this idea of your true believers. And I think I'm interested in the setup, so I don't know if we'll be solving what the burn is, and indeed solving the burn. It sounded like they were travelling with slipstream drive, and I think there was even a mention of trilithium, and I'd have to try and remember the Voyager episode Timeless, which kind of covered that more, but there seemed to be a lot of references to things that maybe worked before. One of the things, when all the dilithium went kablooey, did the rest of it turn red? Because I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but all the dilithium they picked up was red, and in disco terms, I'm sure dilithium's been a kind of bluey green. I noticed it in the opening credits, that the dilithium that kind of flies past the ship as it's being drawn is now red, and it used to be a bluey green, and I wonder if that's significant. And it's red. Where have we seen red before? Lots of places, lots of things are red. But yeah, I'm hoping they don't drag out too much on the Finding Discovery, because I do want the crew back. Frankly, the one thing this episode, because it had action, it had some humour, I loved Drunk Michael, and it had some new characters to introduce, but the one thing it was missing was Tilly, who I'm missing terribly. But yeah, overall, I thought this was a really strong start to the series. I think we've got some interesting places, like I say, why is space broken? And sort of what's surviving, and what's good is because if there is something which is interfering with warp travel, like say damage to subspace, faults with dilithium, then wouldn't it be handy if a ship showed up that could travel around space using something that wasn't dilithium or warp drive? Say, I don't know, because again, warp would, if there was actually subspace problems, possibly an omega particle explosion or something, I don't know how much Voyager you guys know, but that damages space and you can't actually warp through it, but wouldn't it be handy if you just shipped it ran off something that like could grow, like say mushrooms or something? So what's good is they've given, if this is working out the way I see it, and I could be wrong, but what they've done is they've given the Discovery an edge. Bear in mind it's a 900-year-old ship, but they've given it something that gives it an edge. But the upshot of the situation we're in is that Discovery could be swanning about doing all its mycelial jumping, being the awesomest ship of awesome. And there's got two problems. One is it doesn't have the support, so it can't just nip back to Starfleet for a tune-up. And the other one is that every so often they might just run into a ship which can absolutely slap the hell out of it because it is a 900-year-old spaceship. And so I think we've got some really interesting stuff coming ahead, and I'm actually really looking forward to the series. So all it remains for me to say is do keep up the good work, and I will feed back to the next episode, although probably not on time knowing me. But until then, bye for now.
Bye, thank you. And
Bye,
don't worry about it on time. On time is whenever is fine.
Yeah.
It's glad to hear from folk.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't drag Discovery coming back out too long, thankfully.
Yes.
Like the opening of tonight's episode.
Yeah.
Which is fine by me. Splendid.
Yeah.
But wasn't there business in season 7 of Next Generation about them travelling at warp was causing damage, and they for a while they started travelling just at low warp speeds,
damaging subspace, and they had to travel at warp 5.
Yeah, so
they had to have permission to go faster, didn't they?
Yeah, so it's been a thing since Next Generation. So
yeah. Is the dilithium, if it's all gone red, is it now evil dilithium? Is it turned to the dark side?
Possibly, yes. It is now Sith dilithium, apparently.
Silithium.
That's easy for you to say. Anyway. Thanks, Brie. Let's move on to tonight's episode, which was called, because I can't remember the episode titles.
It's the kids' book in the mirror. That hope is you. Part 2.
No, it isn't. That's just it.
They called it part 1, though.
Yes, the previous was part 1. Tonight's episode is called Far From Home. And looking at the episode titles, as Andy told me to, there isn't a part 2, which is blooming bizarre. So either they're going to change one of the titles later on as a reveal or something, or I don't know. It is so odd to have a part 1 and not a part 2, but they don't. Yeah, no, don't.
What was Far From Home used for? There was something. It was you know how these days you get a movie and it's got the proper title and then it's got a colon. Wasn't there a movie where Far From Home was the colon?
Spiderman.
Thank you. There we are.
Yeah. Okay.
And was that the good one or the shit one?
Just checking because I've got no memory. Oh, it's the one with Sinestro in it.
Oh.
Yeah. Point at which we lost it. But there we are. Moving on.
Yes, sorry.
Status reports. Tactical systems are down, as are long-range comms and all-in-ship communications, Commander.
Sensors are not responding. We don't know where we are, and we don't know when we are, sir.
My back might be short-circuiting my brain right now, but I don't recall Terralesium being particularly icy.
Can you speculate on the cause of the systems outage?
Based on how hard we hit, probably a plasma manifold rupture. We'll have to find and fix all of the blown EPS relays and conduits on the ship before we can go anywhere. We can't fly.
This doesn't start with an alarm, Parrot.
No, it doesn't. This starts instead with people waking up, but this time on Discovery. Hooray!
Yay.
They're doing a crash. But Detmer suggests they do a thermal roll, which sounds like something you might get at Greg's. But it's a way of absorbing some of their speed with their shields, apparently, which makes sense.
Yeah, I like the idea,
Yeah. And they also use the deflectors as brakes, which looks really cool.
Yeah.
Fascinating to compare their crash into the ice planet with Enterprise D's crash in Generations, isn't it? And how much better practical effects still are, I'm afraid, because, yeah, never mind.
Well, I don't know. This is not a normal planet, as we later find out, with weird shit parasitic ice. So it's actually something that, for me, when you find out that the ice isn't normal ice, it doesn't bother me at all. Because it's
no, but none of the CG looks particularly solid, it has to be said, in Discovery generally. It seems a bit cheap. If you compare it to, just started watching The Mandalorian, and the CG in that is miles better than the Trek CG, I'm afraid. So.
Right, you see, I don't see
you don't
really
see this,
in
yes,
3D.
we know.
So there was one particular scene in tonight's episode where the doors didn't look real.
It was an awful lot that didn't look real.
No, but literally, in tonight's episode, for me, that was the only thing that didn't look real.
In a sense, it's not a deal breaker. I mean, it's better effects than, say, obviously Babylon 5, which we've been watching a lot of recently. But anyway.
It looks real to me. I know my eyes are broken though.
Olo uses Detmer's first name, which I'm not sure we've heard before, Kayla, apparently.
We have, but possibly only once.
Yes, it was certainly not one I was familiar with anyway. Reno's complaining about her back quite a bit in this episode.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, an older woman's makes for much amusement.
Also, just anyone with a back complaint.
Yeah.
Because you don't see that normally.
Which is pretty much any of us have reached the age of 40, let's face it. So.
Well, I had mine from birth. So, to see anyone with a back complaint, you know what I mean? It's just like, yes, you understand me. I can relate.
She points out they weren't expecting Terralesium to be so icy. She seems to be operating as the ship's chief engineer at the moment, which we've never seen the chief engineer before.
No, but if you remember, I don't think 100% of the people stayed on Discovery.
No, they've only got 80 or so people, haven't they?
Yeah, so she would have either been chosen or automatic as the most senior engineer of those who...
quite probably. But it's nice now to have a chief engineer.
Yeah,
It'd be nice to see engineering at some point. It's still not happened, but hey. Sarah is being all commanding and sensible, which is good. Actually getting to be captain now. About time.
Yeah.
Tilly has found constructed pockets of oxygen, including one with the settlement, which we later find out has the material they need to repair their broken comms. Giorgio turns up with some Leyland on our shoes.
I love that.
And wanting to take charge and locate Michael, and being generally obnoxious. Culber brings Stamets round, and we have a cute scene with the two of them being kind of back to their former selves, which is nice.
Was,
They're still bickering, but they're not like...
it's not in a harsh way it was before. And I like that you've got the moment where he says, Stamets says, it's good to have you back, and Culber says, it's good to have you alive, and it's just, and then they have a kiss, it's like, oh, so sweet.
Meanwhile, Dr. Pollard gives Detmer a clean bill of health, which is clearly not right, because she's still kind of zombified at the moment, so...
Yeah, so we were talking about this after we'd watched with the kids, and my guess is one of two... It's a guess at the moment, it may change, it's one of two things. Either you're looking at psychological injury, and it's trauma.
Because she obviously had the traumatic experience back on the Shenzhou.
Yes.
Which would be a really interesting thing to tap into. I'd be really interested to go down that line.
But then she was the one responsible, and although everybody claps and she saved the day, it must have been fucking terrifying Do you know what I mean? To actually deal with at the time. Or it's one of those things that you used to get a lot in next gen, when they do a general scan and they wouldn't find anything, and then the problem would, get worse and worse over the episodes, and then they would do a special scan for the special thing, having reconfigured the thing to find the thing, and there it was. Which would be a very next gen way to go. But that's also where my brain went as a possibility. So we can call this Detmer Watch. And we can see
because something is clearly being set up.
Yeah.
They're never very subtle about this sort of thing, are they?
No.
I mean, better to set something up.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'd much rather they did that than things come out of the blue. But having said that, Discovery's never particularly subtle about it.
No. So those are my two theories.
Remember Ariam and the glowing red eyes?
Yes.
Slimy. They put that on a trowel, didn't they?
They did a bit. So those are my two theories at the moment for Detmer Watch, and I'd be interested in other people's Detmer Watch theories.
Giorgio continues being a pain in Tilly and Saru's backsides. The captain places Nan in charge of the ship's repairs and orders Giorgio to work on the engines. Yeah, that's going to work, isn't it? We see a technician shoveling Leland's remains into a bucket.
I love that. And Reno calls him Hazmat.
Yeah.
I love that. And he goes, "My name's Jean." And she's like, "Yeah, I'm going to forget that."
Yeah.
I love that. I love Reno.
Oh, she's fantastic in this, isn't she? Yeah. We get Saru and Tilly suiting up to travel to the settlement, which is sort of played as them looking all badass until he starts doing the fart wafting walk.
Well, it's not just that, but it just looks to me... I know they're wearing the same sort of coat thing, and on Tilly it looks like a coat. I'm afraid on Saru it just looks like a dressing gown.
Looking very much like it's filmed in Iceland as well. They got their money's worth from that trip, didn't they? They spot a person in the distance who kind of sort of looks back at them, and he moves on, and they follow him, and he carries on moving. Nothing ever comes of that. It's a bit bizarre. But beyond the fact they follow him to the bar. Blah. Apparently the ice surrounding the ship is parasitic and entombing them, which is an interesting idea. Parasitic ice.
It made me think... I know it's not ice, but it made me think of that Vin Diesel thing in the dark and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
What was that called? Pitch Black?
Pitch Black, that's it, yes. Nan says she stayed with Discovery to give honour to Ariam. And Giorgio gives the fun of jumping from universe to universe as her motivation, which might be setting her up for a spin-off series, I guess.
Yes, I suppose. Maybe the way they're going to get around continuity in Section 31 is that she's going to be in another universe again.
Yes, that would be my suspicion, but there we are. We see Linus! Yay! And Giorgio expresses an interest in his eyes, which ultimately comes to nothing, because I thought that was going to be something significant, but no.
Oh, no, I was terrified that he wasn't going to be seen again and she'd have fucking eaten them.
Yes, quite. We see some sort of mining facility, including stuff floating in the air and balloons.
Yeah, there was all rocks hanging in the air, like rocks don't kind of thing.
Yes.
Sort of hot air rocks or
As
something.
Sprog 2 said, it's all rather steampunk, which is cool, because I don't think Trek has ever done steampunk. So.
Yeah.
They walk into a cave and get beamed to a bar. Result!
Nice.
And it seems to be initially, I thought it looked like it was inhabited by Zaphrases.
Yes.
They all had to look at Zaphras about them.
They did. It was a cave bar. Going to take you to a cave
bar. I want to take you to a cave bar. I want to take you to a cave bar. Cave bar. Cave bar.
Very good. That might be our tune. Anyway, the inhabitants all go for their guns Western style, and there's really a big Western vibe in, not just in the music, but the fact that the blooming doors to the bar are those silly swing doors. I mean, why they would be like that.
I know someone who had them in their kitchen.
Oh gosh, yes. Some people have them in their houses, don't they?
No, I know, but they were fucking annoying because you go through, think you're being helpful to go and take plates out to the kitchen after dinner, and someone's coming the other way, you get fucking whacked in the face and drop all the plates. It's bollocks, that is. Sorry.
One of the inhabitants is called Cal, one of the Zaphrases, and he explains they're miners, although they look quite old actually. And sorry. I resist that every time.
See, I presumed it was one of them in the hoodie things that was the person in the place that led them to the thing.
Well, yeah, except, say, you'd have thought, why were you walking away from us? Or
it was leading them.
Well, none of that is actually picked up on, that's the thing. It's very weird.
Reminds me a bit of Lord of the Rings and Strider, and they end up following him and then whatever.
Some of them are from Corridon, which has featured in Trek before, so that's a nice reference.
Oh, I thought they said corridor.
No. They offer to
Corridon as a place makes more sense than corridor, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
Sorry.
They offer to fix their comms in return for dilithium.
It just looks like a fucking bin from Habitat, don't you think?
No. I've never seen a bin that looks like that and glows blue.
Not that glows, but I've seen it like that, shaped in bamboo.
Okay, right. But there's a threat from someone called Zara, who then promptly arrives with the jingling of spurs, because obviously, I mean, they really are pushing the Western theme. But why would he shoot? I mean, it can't see any spurs, but there's definitely a jingly spurs noise when he walks.
Oh, I tell you what it is. It's that era's equivalent of them light-up shoes that kids have. When you press down, when your heel touches the floor, it makes a spur noise.
Okay.
No, the little kids, don't they? They have those trainers, but when they step, it lights up.
Yeah.
It's like that, makes a noise. It's cowboy boots with added noise.
Anyway, he's played by Jake Weber, who does it a nicely sort of creepy, threatening job on it, so that's good. And he identifies Saru and Tilly as being time travellers and kills Cal very messily, it has to be said.
Yeah.
Kind of boils him. Lovely.
Ooh.
Nilsson arrives to assist Reno and Stamets. She's played, of course, by Sarah Mitic, who was the original Ariam actor.
Oh, why? I'm confused. So she's come back and...
So she played Ariam in season 1, and then season 2, Ariam was played by somebody else, and she started playing this new character called Nilsson. I've yet to find a reason why there was a change of actor in the second season. It's very mysterious.
Possibly makeup. Some
people
actor...
react badly to it.
Yeah, some people don't know that they're going to have a horrible, horrible reaction, and then if they that's why the Moogie actor changed.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's true. But anyway, there's nothing on Memory Alpha about it. So anyway, Nilsson has to go get Culber as Stamets gets injured. Giorgio turns up at the bar and gets zapped for a cheek, which is very stupid of Zara, because then, of course, that just makes her angry.
Oh, I love this fight. It's brilliant.
I particularly like the line from Saru, "On my mark, get behind the bar," which is the best Starfleet order ever.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
We see Saru use his Spines of Death.
Oh, that's brilliant. Because I was saying the whole time earlier on, when they were under threat, why is he not firing them things? Why is he not firing them things? And then he does. He's like, yes, death spines for the win.
And yes, it finishes up with Giorgio saying, "What you call pain, I call foreplay," which says all you need to know about it, really.
It does, really, yeah.
Then there's a face-off between Saru and Giorgio about what they're going to do with Saru, which Saru wins.
I love this. I mean, all the way through this episode, she's been pushing and pushing and pushing. I wonder if it's because he's Kelpian and she's not met an evolved one before. Has she? Whereas he has evolved and he doesn't have the threat ganglia in the same way, whatever. And he's not even bothered. He's just not having any of her shit. And he doesn't raise his voice. He's just like, no, that's not happening.
Anyway, the remaining minor, who's called Osir in Memory Alpha, but I don't think he gets named on screen, lets Zahag go into the night where the parasitic ice is running rampant. So I guess we might see him again. He may somehow survive that, but we shall see.
Depends what was in Tilly's pack.
And Osir gives Saru a personal transporter, enabling the return to Discovery.
Yay.
As they get ready to go, Detmer's still not with it, which, as I say, presumably will pan out later. They struggle to free themselves from the ice, but are rescued by... Had you guessed who this was straight away?
Well, I saw that you saw the image, the slight image of the funny shaped ship, so you knew who it was.
What, on the scanner, you mean?
There was a brief shot of something coming out of the clouds, and you could just see it was.
Oh, it was the knife shape. Yeah. I hadn't spotted that, but it was like, well, this is clearly going to be Michael, isn't it? At this point.
No, but I spotted that one. Oh, it's their ship. Cool.
Mm-hmm. And she's grown her hair because she's been there a year, and that's what you do, particularly if there's a lockdown and you can't go to the barbers.
Presumably, yeah.
Anyway, despite that slightly predictable ending, I thought it was a very fun, excellent
I love
episode.
this. This is what I watch Discovery for.
Exactly, yes.
It's got amazing character moments. I love Reno and her snark, but she's not mean. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's properly saying to Stamets, yeah, because of course you're all good and whatever, and she's just not taking any of his shit. But again, she's not horrible about it. You know what I mean? Which is great. It's really good. And you've got Stamets and Culber being cute again. Can we have another toothbrush scene, please? And that's really lovely. I love the way that even though the actor's colouring is pale anyway, they've somehow made him look even more pale.
Stamets, yes.
Is it Anthony Rapp? Is that the actor's name?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
So he's pale anyway, and they've made him look even more pale. And he's doing the whole bullshit, I'm going to still do it anyway. And she's just like, yeah, go on then.
Yeah.
I just brilliant interplay between the two of them. But I love Reno as a character. Tilly is amazing. She's just like, why are you taking me? Because like Georgiou's always putting her down. You can see her doubting herself, and because she's had that, from previous episodes, she's had those doubts, sown in her by her mum. And then Saru is like, but you are an excellent first impression. And she shows that in the episode. She shows why she's on the command programme. And she's just lovely, and I want to give her a big hug and say well done. Saru is awesome. You get the Spines of Death, like, yes. But also...
The Spines of Death definitely sounds like a Doctor Who story, I'm sorry.
It does, doesn't it? Or a metal album. Which is awesome. But whereas when we saw them before in season 2, they were an instinctive reaction that he didn't predict coming. They just happened. Clearly he's learnt to control them, because he could have done it at any point, and then he chooses to do it when it's tactically more, do you know what I mean? To his...
Yeah, I think he waits for the right moment.
Right moment, tactically to his advantage. And I just love him. He's brilliant. He's got proper command. He's got all the Starfleet values that clearly, I think, Pike helped instill in him in the previous season, because he comes out, I'm not saying with Pike quotes, but lines you could hear Pike saying as well, about how we're not going to abandon what we believe and all that sort of stuff. But he's not taking no crap off no one, and he's properly putting Georgiou in her place, which I love. Georgiou is awesome. She has Leland on her shoes, and she's just a bitch. But she knows that. Everyone knows that, and I love watching her. And she's not a love to hate to me. Or a hate to love. She's not somebody I would want to be friends with, if you see what I mean. But she's a character I like watching, rather than a character I want to die any minute now, if you see what I mean. I generally liked the other characters as well, as in the new ones that we're introduced to. But I'm sad that Cal died, because I liked him.
Yes, he's quite sweet, isn't he?
Yeah.
And clearly sort of bonds with Tilly, and he'd like to be in Starfleet, but yes.
So it would have been nice to have more of him. But I guess in a way they did some of that so you cared when he died.
Exactly, yes.
And it's nice to see more of Owu and Detmer and...
Yes, they had a few moments, didn't they, which was nice.
And Bryce and the other dude, whose name I still haven't managed to remember.
Oh dear, no, nor have I. I thought I'd got them all, but you're right. Bryce is the communications guy.
Yes.
It's the tactical guy whose name I'm now forgetting, so I'm going to have to look up in Memory Alpha.
Yes. Reese,
that's it, yes. Oh, and Nan, of course, as well, gets quite a bit.
But also as well with Nan, she explains what she does, and then on the one hand, she's not taking that crap from Georgiou, and on the other hand, I love the interplay with her and Reno, because she's like, she said she was going to go and help Linus on Deck 8, and Reno just looks at her and goes, what, and you believed her? And then she's like, oh shit.
Georgiou, help.
Yeah!
So yes, a proper Discovery episode as far as I'm concerned.
And it's just like, after the previous one, I thought, I used to really like this show. and I just kind of ended up thinking, did I misremember it? Because when we rewatched season 2, I didn't enjoy it as much. It didn't have as much rewatch value. And for me, for TV, in a way that doesn't matter as long as it had impact the first time round. But it made me think, maybe it's not as good as I thought it was. Maybe it's a bit rose-tinted specs kind of thing. And then watch this and I'm like, yay, this is my show.
It's a lot of these characters we can see a lot more of, basically, so yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, what did other people think? So we heard again from Andy, and he was talking about how, there are 80 or so crew members left now out of a total crew complement around about 140. So I was saying that I think the impression I got anyway at the end of last season, not everybody went back.
Yeah.
Some stayed on the Enterprise. But he's suggesting that maybe we need to be keeping a survivor count, because obviously they're not going to get recrewed.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So we may end up doing a BSG survivor count. You never know. Chris Williams on Twitter confirmed that Sarah Mitic stood down as Ariam in season 2 because of a reaction to the makeup.
Oh,
so,
right. Yeah,
as you thought.
Yeah.
And
we've heard from Doreen, who writes, hooray, the crew are back!
Yay.
I love seeing Tilly and Jet especially. I'm worried about Detmer. Emily Coots is acting strangely. I think she's constantly looking like she's got sensory overload. I love the world building in this one. Anthony identified the bad guy as the husband from Medium. It took me a while to see it, but I think he's right.
So yes, I checked and IMDb reveals that Jake Weber, who plays Zara, was indeed John Dubois in Medium. So there you go. Well done, Anthony.
Yeah. So sensory overload. Okay, so that's a new one to add to the list. So
Could be.
Something I hadn't checked for.
Yeah.
Trauma or just complete sensory overload.
I think it's something to do with a previous injury because she was putting her hand up to where that sort of weird thing is in her head that's presumably holding her skull together. So we shall find out, no doubt.
Yeah.
We've also heard about this episode from Boss as well. Was anyone else slightly surprised that the heavily damaged Discovery could be fixed by replacing a SCART lead last seen attached to 1990s video recorders?
It did look like that, didn't it, really?
Yes. I quite like that, though, because it was very, nicely techy and it felt right for the era.
Yeah.
It wasn't too futuristic. Like all the sort of the weird knitting together parts things that they've got in the far future.
With the programmable matter, yeah.
I enjoyed this episode, but any episode with plenty of Tilly and Jet Reno is fine with me. I was pleased to see Burnham turn up at the end because I was worried that we'd be treated to alternate episodes of them searching for each other that lasted the whole season.
Oh God, that would have been awful.
No, lasted that. So yes, definitely the right move in her turning up at the end.
Yes. What did Martin think of this?
Hi there, it's Martin here. Just feeding back on the second episode of Discovery Series 3, and that's Far From Home. Although I know that Discovery wasn't journeying to many European capitals in pursuit of Mysterio. I think that must be a different property entirely. Although I know that this wasn't the second half of That Hope Is You. In fact, I can't see that on any episode list at all for Season 3, unless it's at the beginning of Season 4, in which case it must make it the longest time between parts in the history of television. But yes, we see Discovery again. We catch up with Discovery and their landing and in the future. So yeah, it's great to have the crew back, though. It's great to have everybody back and to see to see everybody again. And of course, kind of going through the motions of trying to get the ship repaired, up and running. So it's very kind of light on plot, actual plot kind of episode. I think, but again, it's kind of a lot of setup, and we're just getting to meet the new characters again. I mean, the main kind of plot, I think, takes place in that kind of little Western saloon kind of thing, doesn't it? Where we're going through another scene of of our characters trying to bluff the fact that they're from the past. Although it feels like something that's really seen before, though, with some petty robber baron holding a whole town of villagers to ransom. We've seen that before in quite a few places. Although I think the design of the little saloon was quite nice. You do have the kind of the doors which looked a bit space age. I enjoyed the weapons as well. I thought the weapons were very well designed. But riding to our rescue was not the A-Team after all. It was in fact Philippa Giorgio, who came in and kicked ass appropriately. It's always good to have a character like that around, I think, because with shows like this, you do spend a lot of time in the moral characters sort of spend a lot of time moralising and about whether you should kill other people, where she's just someone who'll come in and just get her hands dirty and just kick ass everywhere and do what must be done, I guess. Speaking of Giorgio, I do have to wonder for a start, she took a number of hits to the chest. So I do think maybe she might have something under there or something protecting her, but she didn't seem to be, or at least didn't say anything about it at the end. And I have to also fear for Linus a little bit, because Giorgio went off with Linus, and we haven't seen him since, have we? We know she's partial to a bit of Kelpian, but so she's not above eating species as part of the Terran Empire. Hashtag thoughts and prayers for Linus. Speaking of Kelpian, this is a brilliant episode for Saru, I thought. A great episode for Doug Jones. We also get to see Saru's little kind of ear spike things again, don't we? I thought he was good in this episode, although I don't know how it was going to lead on to being a captain, or whether captains exist anymore. Or how Saru, King of Nothing, I think. It's no great surprise as well. I think that was Michael on the thing at the end. because they got to be reunited some point or other, haven't they? And it's been a year apparently, so therefore the Discovery took that long to sort of come through the time dilation, as we were discussing last week. Although I think perhaps Burnham's been away trying to argue for more money for Greater Manchester, although that may perhaps be a different Burnham. Detmer, there's obviously something up with Detmer, so I expect we're gonna look into that at some point. And for the love of God, hopefully when Jet Reno returns, she will shut up about her back. Seriously, every single line she had was moaning about her back. That's everything I've got to say. As I say, light on plot of this episode. Oh, the Discovery as well. I thought looked very nice cover as all the kind of the ice, the parasitic ice, kind of bore down on it. I thought that was all very good. So anyway, right, I'll see you next week for the reunion special. Cheers, bye.
Right, we probably need to explain the Burnham reference, don't we?
Yes, because people in the United States are going to be like, the what now?
So the mayor of the city of Manchester is a Burnham as well. He's not
Andy, I think.
He is. He's Andy Burnham, isn't he? And he's been a loggerheads with the government over the pathetic amount of support the government were offering the people of Manchester, basically, in order for them to be properly locked down and still be able to survive economically. So yes, that's what that's all about.
Yeah. Made us laugh, though.
Yes. It's not necessarily going to be the longest wait ever for a part 2 or a next part, if the first of the next season is part 2, because if you also have a look at the list of episode names, one of them is, for this season is Unification Part 3. Now, those who know the Next Generation will know that Season 5 had Unifications Parts 1 and 2. It was the one where Spock came into the series. It just boggles how we're going to get onto that one, but yeah.
So the new Federation is going to be united with the Romulans?
Maybe. It'd be interesting to get Romulans into this, considering how heavily they were in Picard as well. Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah. And yes, he's also worried about Linus.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Narm says that she spoke to Linus, and Linus said
Georgia was coming. That's
yeah,
what I thought.
So he's alive, but yes.
She's got her eye on him.
Her eye on his eyes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the design of the weapons as well.
Yeah.
It reminded me a bit of Tron.
Okay, yeah,
because the sort of lines, do you know what I mean? On the
they were kind of cowboy shotgun style, I thought.
Yeah, but sort of Tron-ized.
Yeah, but obviously, yes, futurized. And all the guns. I mean, the ones that the Zaphrases had were quite distinctive as well. And then also we had the Sea Devil guns in the last part. So they're really going out for making their guns look different in the far future, which is cool. That's nice. Next Generation, generally everything was just a variation of Phaser, wasn't it? So
yes. And it didn't look much different to each other, really. No. So I like this. I like that. It looked cool.
And I think it had several settings, hence the idea was that he was making Giorgio suffer. So he was sort of hitting her on the lower settings, hence she wasn't dead.
Except, that could be the case, but...
Well, he does actually say that, it's going to take a long while as a result of your jip.
But then also, given that she was the Emperor, I wouldn't be surprised if she has some kind of bulletproof or some form of protection as well, just not anything bulky and obvious.
Yes, it would have to be more phaser-proof, obviously, than bulletproof. But
you know what I mean? As a principle, something that absorbs at least some of it.
Who knows?
What did the Llama God make of this?
Llama God's like, Scotty, Fika, Jake, Fixie Care. You ain't from around these parts, are you? Stranger. Now, I'm sure that everyone's familiar with the phenomenon of dog whistles, which are slogans, messages that can seem innocent and innocuous enough, and which are shown in plain sight, and which to most people will mean nothing. But to those in the know, they'll know that they're being signalled, a message is being sent, and really, if anyone tries to question it, or people outside the group trying to question it, they can be so innocuous that these claims that these are actual messages being sent can be dismissed quite easily. For another fandom that I'm part of, the Transformers fandom, there was a bit of a kerfuffle last week because one of their figures, Jazz, which has been voiced by a black man in the past, his previous toy had a little Cybertronian tattoo on it, which when translated read MAGA, so there were obviously some issues with that. Now, he's had a new toy recently released. He turns into a racing car. His racing number is usually number 4, but that number for the new release has been changed to 14. Now, that's fine, because the actual number 4 on that particular brand of racing car has been copyrighted, so yeah, 14, why not? Well, see, the issue with that is that 14 is also a white supremacist dog whistle. It's the number of words in one of the phrases that they use, and so coupled with the fact that his previous iteration of his toy had Trump's white supremacist slogan on his door, it was difficult to dismiss it. Yes, the designers eventually eventually came out and said no, it was number 14 because that was the original toy's release number in the original Japanese Diaclone market. But yeah, it rattled some people. And then this very week, the Sky History Channel has had an interview with a heavily tattooed woodcutter, and they've had to pull it because of his tattoos. Now, one of the tattoos was 2614, again referencing the same 14, and 26, that's another white supremacist slogan thing as well. So yeah, again, these are all out in the open, and they try to dismiss them, but there are too many coincidences, especially given that on his face he had the number 88. And 88 references two letters HH, because they are both the 8th letter in the alphabet, and the HH stands for Hail Hitler. It's another white supremacist thing. So, where am I going with this? Well, you shouldn't expect to find it here, but given all these things are happening, I'm very sensitive. So when Discovery this week announced that they had a surviving 88 crew members, I was a little bit thrown. Yeah, in the world of science fiction, 88 is a famous number, 88 miles per hour and all that, and it could well be a coincidence, but it got my hackles up, and I'm just a bit nervous, and I'm going to be looking out for things throughout the season. I really hope that this is just a random coincidence, because of course Trek is so hopeful, so diverse, and I hope that this isn't someone on the writing team, or even someone in the cast, trying to make a point across because they don't like where the diverse nature of the show is actually going, and we've all seen those arguments online that it is too diverse from people who don't understand Star Trek. So yeah, I'm really hoping it's just a coincidence, but this is why my opening ramble comes from, because I've been burned by a lot of stuff in the last week. So yeah, but to talk about the episode itself, I'll start by talking about the previous episode. I mean, I know you didn't really enjoy it very much because there wasn't enough of the Discovery and there was too much Michael. On the contrary, I mean, you know that I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it because there was just Michael, because we had that sense of her being on her own, stranded, the jeopardy, and it really left me hungry for seeing where the crew were, and I like that. I'm really glad that this week we focused on the rest of the crew and not Michael. So yeah, everyone got a chance to shine, and that was great. And yeah, I was hungry for the crew, and we got to see the crew and the ship, and they're back, and it was so good to see them. And again, as I said with the last episode, it seemed like a callback to a very early original series Trek, and this one, again, you probably noticed there's all the very Western analogues here with the frontier bar, the shootout in the bar and everything. And yeah, again, Trek was originally described by Roddenberry as Wagon Train to the Stars, so here we are. So it is Trek, it's Trek at its core, and it's also showing a hopeful vision of the future. So much hope and so much kindness and compassion on display in this episode. I mean, this really is proper Trek, and I loved it, basically. The alien world also looked very alien. I mean, yeah, it was a bit steampunky, a bit Avatar maybe, or World of Warcraft, where my thought went to. But yeah, why not? It's an alien world, and strange new worlds, that's what it's meant to be about. So this is a strange world, really loved it as well. And yeah, it was just so good to see the crew. Saru has really grown into his role as temporary acting captain of the ship. I mean, this does cheat a little bit in that we've been away from the cast and crew for over a year now, whereas in story terms it's only minutes since the previous episode, but we've allowed ourselves time for the characters to grow in our heads, and Saru has grown like this as a cheat. No, he was on this trajectory from the previous season, really, but he has grown into such a strong, considered, kind, compassionate captain, and I'm really looking forward to see where he goes with this. I am just loving how he is. It was also great seeing Stamets and Cole were back being a couple again. Not so much angst, but actually a couple, loving, snarking at each other, just so good. Jet Reno, also fantastic, and again, not just being sarcastic and with witty one-liners, but also being compassionate and clever and good at their job, and yeah, no, again, wonderful. Giorgio, of course, was there. There was a great line where they realised that, the ice grew in the shade. Well, they need to get Giorgio off the ship then, because the amount of shade that she casts is incredible. Yes, she did come and save their asses a bit, but it provided some action, and it made Joe drool visibly, so yeah, why not? We're not going to complain about Giorgio being there. And of course, Tilly, again, wonderful in this episode. Pure, wonderful Tilly. I can't say enough good things. The only real downside character-wise in this episode was the character of Zara, who was written to be a very enigmatic badass, but the actor playing him just wasn't quite strong enough, didn't have the necessary level of charisma to really pull off what they were going for, which is a shame, but it's a very minor point in this. So yeah, absolutely loved this episode, loved them trying to figure out what to do, and also the fact they went to make a deal, and they kept the deal, even when things went kind of sour, because that's the Federation, that's what they do, and they're here to bring hope to the world, and this is such a good, important message. So yeah, my initial reservations aside, and which I'm hoping I'm just being paranoid, but then that's the point of these things, is to make you paranoid and question everything. This was a really strong episode, and as previously, I'm really looking forward to next episode. So yeah, good stuff so far. As ever, I'm looking forward to finding out what everyone else makes of these things, and until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know whether you can read anything into 88 crew members or not. They might have just thought it sounded a good number.
I suspect, yeah.
I would be surprised if there was somebody writing Trek who had been hired by the current people running it who had those views.
Yeah, they'd feel rather out of place in the current setup. I can't help feeling so, yes.
And yeah, it is great to see kindness and compassion, and Saru being a strong captain, and Jet as well, Reno being snarky but not horrible and compassionate with it in a way that, and understandable. Do you think that the guy playing Zara, whatever it was called, was...
I liked him. I thought he underplayed it nicely, actually. It wasn't all sort of moustache twirly bad guy, but actually, he was just like it was kind of like sort of this was his, getting on with his day job sort of thing. He wasn't going to make a big thing of anything, but yeah, just being nasty was kind of part of his job. So yeah, I quite liked him.
Okay.
But I do agree that it's nice to see a properly alien-looking world, and one that we've really not seen in Trek before. So yes, it may have influences from various places, but it's not something that we've seen in a Trek series. So I welcome it, really.
Yeah, and I like the idea of parasitic ice.
Bizarre, but yes, different.
Yes.
Well, let's find out what the next episode's called, shall we?
Yeah.
People of Earth, apparently. Yeah. Which is very Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, isn't it? So presumably somebody's planet is facing destruction in order to make way for a intergalactic bypass. But we'll find out as we cover next week's episode. Thanks to everybody who's fed back.
Thank you.
Feel free to send us your thoughts, and we'll catch you next time. Cheerio, bye.
Bye.
I wanna take you to a gay bar. I wanna take you to a gay bar. I wanna take you to a gay bar, gay bar, gay bar. Let's stop. Stop. At the gay bar, gay bar, gay bar. Wow.
With thanks to Andy Palastides for the Borgcast Discovery artwork. All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
We have a Facebook page, and we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or borgcastammo. #Borgcast.
I've got something to put in you. I've got something to put in you.
Shut it down!